Hi, I'm Lovey of AwesomelyLovey.com, and I'm a writer, a digital strategist, and a lover of technology. AT&T's 28 Days empowers people to make their own history by offering inspirational tools, tips, and stories at att.com/28days. 28 Days celebrates how African Americans have impacted our culture and highlights those we believe will have an impact in the future. On this episode of AT&T 28 Days, we're talking with Rey Ramsey, and we cover what does it mean to be a social justice entrepreneur, why he doesn't do handouts to the poor, he does hand-ups, and how tech has empowered us. So let's get into it. All right, so I'd love to welcome Rey Ramsey. I am excited to talk to you and learn more about what you do, how you basically became this social justice entrepreneur, and what lessons you can pass on to people. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you.
So my first question for you, though, is what is a social justice entrepreneur exactly?
Well, you know what? I was hoping you would tell me that. Since people have used that characterization, for me, I think what it just means is that, we bring the same entrepreneurial spirit, meaning that this sense of experimenting, looking for outcomes, setting goals, and then having the willingness to go out there and try and experiment. And a lot of the vernacular that's being used now is thinking about impact. And so it's not going out there for the sole purpose of making money, although there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But it's saying that you can invest your time, you can invest your money, but you should also and not only expect a return, but that you can impact society. And there's so much to be done. And when you can bring capital, human capital, financial capital, together with aspiration, you have this great opportunity to create impact.
I love that. So what inspires you to want to make an impact in the world?
Well, I'm the product of my parents, both because of the obvious physical, but more from the emotional, psychological. This was ingrained by both my parents, my late mom, and as well as my father, who's still alive, to always seek to make places around you better. So all the way from grade school, when I got involved in student government, to law school, where we were protesting the lack of black faculty at the school and pushing the envelope at University of Virginia. Everywhere I've been, it's been this dual focus on, yes, I want to focus on my career, but my career is linked with what's going on around me, and that I can play a role in doing my little part to make it a little bit better.
I have a huge respect for anyone who prioritizes giving back and service. So I just give you props for that. I think for people who are in positions of power and privilege to make it a point to give back, I mean, for me, it's an incredible thing to hold as a value.
Well, the little secret is that those of us who at least do this or try to do it, we get more than what we give. And so each of those opportunities I just cherish. When you can sit there and be around people and you give a little something, and that one look that they can give you, or they grab your hand, and that thank you, that lasts a lifetime. And so what you're getting from that is so much more than whatever time you put in, or the check that you wrote, or the deal that you've tried to get together. So when I work with people often, I say, I'm just trying to create a symbiotic relationship, but don't ever look at me as though I'm doing you a favor, because I'm not.
I love that. Yes. So how and when did you know your career would take this current path?
Well, I always, early on in my career, said I wanted to impact public policy. And when I was studying political science at Rutgers College, I told people that when they asked me. And I said, I'm going to get involved. And so when I started practicing law, I started my charitable endeavors by getting involved with Habitat for Humanity. And then when I went into government and became the head of housing for the state of Oregon, I just combined those two worlds. I had a world where I was working with Habitat, helping to house the poor, and then suddenly my day job was all about financing housing for low-income people, and the worlds came together. And then I just continued to pursue other opportunities out there, because then I said, well, it's fine that we can get people housing, but what's happening with their education? What's happening with their health? And then when you would see one generation of poverty after another, and then I said, well, we can't be talking about ourselves about helping the poor. And I said, let's banish the terminology that we're going to help the poor, and instead say, let's facilitate their success. And if you say to somebody, I want to facilitate your success, it instantly says, I believe in you. I'm not just here to give you a handout versus I'm just here to help you. So that's the mentality.
I think that's a really good way to look at it, because people also tend to look at somewhat service as a bit of a pat on the back opportunity. So it's actually refreshing to hear that. So do you think your service is tied to the legacy that you want to leave when you are no longer on this earth?
Yeah, it means everything to me, and there's a great book that is out, Road to Character, and David Brooks wrote it, and he talks about, the kind of virtues that you can have, and he says that there are resume virtues, and then the virtues basically upon your death, eulogy virtues, and it's about what you want people to say. And so for me, I want that to be, if anybody has anything to say, not just that I racked up a bunch of things on my resume.
Right. You want tangible, he actually did this.
Yeah. Real impact, real results, touching a life, one person at a time.
And, I always find it fascinating to find out the last book people read, or a book that has really impacted them in some way. And you already answered that, so I love that. Also, I got to add that to my wish list. Paul Brunson gave me one to add to my wish list, too, so you just gave me another really good one to consider. So what do you read to give you inspiration and ideas for success?
Well, I try to, I wish I read a little bit more. I've got a whole stack of things on my nightstand that I'm looking at getting to. And very often I'll go back in time and read philosophy. So I do like reading political philosophy.
Okay.
So I'm reading some stuff from John Stuart Mill right now. I just happen to be reading. And then I just voraciously go through the web and go through a lot of different sites, trying to get a sense of what's going on in the world. And I love The Economist and reading that, and I love the Financial Times, but there's a lot that I read. I zip through a lot.
So I assume you are not a millennial, correct?
Correct.
So how do you think technology has changed how we consume news?
Well, it's clear that look, whether you're a millennial or not, it's changed it, because at a fingertip, it's given us this ability to move around and get differing perspectives. And so I'd say on the first end, it has changed news from a supply side. So it used to be we were all funneled through 3 channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, for our news on television, and then you had 1, maybe 2 papers in your city, and that's it. Now you're able to consume a wider variety, and now we can zip through it at light speed. And so what it does is it creates opportunity, but it also creates challenges, and we have to understand how to be a good news consumer. And understand that sometimes that requires this ascertaining of perspectives. And a lot of news is written with different perspectives, and we have to be able to know how to sift through that and to understand it. So technology, on the one hand, enables it, but on the other hand, it creates a threat because it's a channel, in some cases, for demagoguery. And so you have to know how to sift through and be the right kind of news consumer.
So I'm part of the bridge generation is what I call. So I'm part of the generation that remembers the time before the internet was pervasive in everything. But I'm part of the generation that's also grown up with like Facebook. So I feel like I'm part of the generation where we're kind of the middle ground. What is your middle ground? How do you consume news in terms of digital and print? Are you still getting newspapers?
The only time I will get a newspaper is if I'm in an airport.
Okay.
So I've just abandoned getting, paper. And so I really rely on my reader, my iPad. and that's how I consume news electronically, as well as some noise in the background with television. But it's for me, it is primarily digital.
Gotcha. So for you, how does tech influence the work that you do?
Well, it's everything, because one of the things I do now is I'm president of Upturna International, which is a fiber optic company. So we're all about what I call enabling spaces to basically facilitate the aspirations of people. And so whether it's an aging population, putting in technology so that individual can stay in their home and age in place, or whether it's for a hotel or for the needs of an apartment building, it's all about making sure that people have the speed and the connectivity and the ability to be able to be as interoperable as needed. And so I spend a big portion of my day thinking about how do we make sure technology gets into the hands of everybody in a way that they can utilize it.
Speaking of being in your hands, do you go to sleep with your smartphone in your hands?
It's the last thing that I put down, but I end my evening with in meditation and prayer, and so that is out of my hand, and I make that transition so that I can sleep and turn it off. And so I don't have it so it's binging and popping in the background while I'm potentially asleep. You've got to have downtime.
Agreed on that. I mean, it's harder said than done.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. But how has access to information and technology empowered people? What do you see around the work that you do and just in general?
Well, it's a democratizer. It gives people the opportunity to hear and see about what's going on. And one of the things I like about it, regardless of what you earn and what your skin color is, you can type in a question and get an answer. And it's not always like that in the rest of society.
True.
And that's one of the most powerful things. And so what we've got to do is be vigilant to make sure that in every corner of the country, people are able to take advantage of the full potential, and that we harness the potential of technology in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of civic engagement, and all of those things that we're being more intentional about. So I would say that we've made progress in society, but we have a lot left to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some communities that basically do not have access to Wi-Fi. So that, finding out things like that in 2016 is actually kind of surprising.
No, we still have that. We have a lot of places. And remember, technology is about the continuous advance, right? So the new day doesn't dawn. There's not a moment where you're frozen in time. So my fear is when people try to measure what's going on, what I want to see is continuous improvement. You know that we're moving toward, quote, the Internet of Things, IoT, machine-to-machine communication.
Right.
Well, we've got to make sure that, particularly for those who have least income, that where they live, they're going to be able to take advantage of these things. We're calling places a smart home and a smart building, right? Well, how many of our low-income citizens are going to be able to live in a smart home?
Right.
We've got to make it our business to make sure that happens. And that's where I spend time thinking about making sure that we're not standing here 10 years from now talking about a different type of digital divide, because it keeps changing. The definition is not frozen in time. And that's the mistake people are making. It's not just having a Wi-Fi connection. It's how fast is it? How reliable is it? How affordable is it? All of those issues are relevant.
So for your career, what do you consider success? What is the benchmark for you?
For me, I just want to keep learning.
Okay.
It's just like how I was saying about the internet. I just want to keep learning. And I've reinvented myself multiple times in my career, from housing to finance and technology and content production. So I just want to keep learning. The new day won't dawn until I can't open my eyes anymore. And that's what I care about. And then that, along with pounding and trying to find a way to make sure people have access to whatever that is, whether that's affordable housing, whether that's technology, basic human services, and ultimately dignity. That's what people need access to.
Thanks to Rey Ramsey for being on this show. And thank you for listening to AT&T 28 Days. We're not done yet because in part 2 of this conversation, Rey tells an incredible story about his defining moment. So make sure you check back. In the meantime, visit att.com/28days for more info. Also, follow the conversation on social media using the hashtag ATT28days. It has been a pleasure being your host. I'm Lovey of AwesomelyLovey.com. Peace.